All right. Can someone give me an idea if you're watching? I see that you are. Um, it didn't look like it ever ended, but I did have to shut down my computer and log back in. So you obviously had a long delay there. If it kept going, because it didn't seem to end the broadcast, which I found interesting. So anyway, we are here. And I have a number of questions from you that I wanted to address today in our Powerhouse Mavericks training, and that's what this is all about. Is our weekly Thursdays at 1 p.m. If you're new to Powerhouse Mavericks, we typically will focus on one topic. And yet, I posted the other day, and I simply asked, "What is the one thing you're struggling with in your business?" And a number of you provided me a response, and I thought, well, I could pick one, but at the same time, that's not necessarily fair, is it? So I thought to myself, okay, then I'm going to tackle the three questions that were passed along, hopefully to provide you then some tips and strategies that you can consider for yourself when it comes to these situations and questions that they had that maybe you have too. Let me fix this light because I've been knocking everything trying to stay organized, which is our first question. Uh, so when I posted that, Vreeny came along and said, organization through chaos. And Rini Rangley, if you haven't introduced yourself to her as a group member in Powerhouse Mavericks on Facebook, please do. She's fabulous. And she has an upcoming exhibit of all of her work, or I should say, a good number of pieces of her work. So we're excited for her. She's all like, yeah, working to get it done. And then on top of that, of course, she's a mother of multiple children and a wife and a business owner. And at the same time, there's holidays coming along. So, can any of you kind of put yourself into her shoes? I'm sure you can. And therefore, her comment about organization through chaos, I thought was a perfect timing to kind of give some focus to that. And we all can kind of go through chaos. Now, there's different degrees of chaos. There are those just crazy days where our laundry list is, really long. It could be the fact that something completely derails your life and or the work that you're doing for a short period of time or a long period of time. And then there's just like true chaos. When I say that means something, devastating, life changing that might all of a sudden come in and interrupt everything that you knew, that your life was, and now you have to kind of figure out how to work through it. And so I would suggest to anyone, regardless of the degree of which you're going through, I definitely have some tips and advice, and some of it you're just going to potentially roll your eyes, oh well, yes, I know, I hear that a lot, but life is all about the basics. That's my view on it. There's nothing rocket science out there. There's nothing out there that's so new and so different and so uniquely maybe more powerful than the basics. And so what I would suggest is going to the basics. So the first thing I would do in whatever chaos you might be dealing with, I would just stop. I would just simply stop. Give yourself some pause, give yourself some breath, give yourself some time to consider what in the world is happening. Whether it is just life, and the holiday season and an exhibition, and the kids and the community and the business, just kind of stop. And then what I want you to do is I want you to define, describe, and then dissect it. Okay. So first define it. What is it that's happening? Now, when I say define it too, I mean, let's use Vreeny for an example. She has this exhibit that is going on as of Friday, I believe, tomorrow, I believe. And it required her to do a lot of, artwork, but at the same time, then she had to get some framing done. And then she had to put together how she wants it to, to be hung and to be presented. And then she has other gift cards and other things she'll be selling. But on top of all of that, she has the kids who are in her space as she's trying to pull all this together. And then, of course, there's, the husband and the house to be taken care of, and then the holiday seasons and so forth and so on. So when I say define, I want you to really kind of define what this swirl is. Is it in her case, it might be like an exciting swirl of chaos. It might be a scary and exciting swirl. It could be that it is devastating or hard or life changing or life transforming, but almost put a label or a title to it. Because once you start doing that, you start kind of letting the air out, because you're getting your head around it and you're giving yourself that space, that breath to get your head around it. So define it. And then what I want you to do is I just dropped. I don't know what my computer's doing today. And then what I want you to do is I do want you to describe it in more detail, apart from the definition of it. That this is exciting, scary, but it could be life-changing, business transforming. That's how you might define it. Describing it, I want you to kind of really feel it. Like, what is it creating for you within yourself, outside of yourself? What is it, kind of look like, smell like, feel like, sound like? Describe it, because once again, as you are putting words and thoughts and consideration to anything, even chaos, you can then kind of take the air out of it, and you can kind of take the power away from the chaos and take control, so then you can get organized, because that's really what she was looking for, organization through chaos. So I want you to define it, describe it, and then I want you to dissect it. I want you to look at that definition and that description, and I want you to really kind of understand it. Why are you feeling what you're feeling? Why are you thinking what you're thinking? Why are you doing what you're doing? Why are you maybe reacting, or maybe you're responding? Maybe you are logically working through it, or maybe you're being very illogical. But I really want you to dissect it and understand your role in it, your accountability to it, your response to it, your control or lack of control of it. So define, describe, and dissect. Okay. And then I want you to really tap into those emotions. Vreeny and I and others were talking just the other day, and she's just like, she's like, but it's a good, but at the same time, I have so much to do. And she's showing us her to-do list and so forth and so on. So she had a lot of emotions going on, and that's not a bad thing. At the same time, it only kind of, I don't want to say gets bad, but it only starts to wreak havoc when we don't really sit with it and, just define, describe, and dissect it. If we just kind of let it continue to happen, we're not in control at all. We're allowing our emotions and everything that's happening most likely around us, as well as in between our two ears, to really affect us. And what I want, and where you're going to find organization through chaos, is taking complete control of how you are responding to it. That's going to be your number one primary way of getting organized through any type of chaos, big or small. Okay. So I really want you to understand how you're responding to things. Does it hurt? Is it causing you to be sad or depressed or stressed, overwhelmed, burned out, excited, exhilarated, scared, angry? What is it? And then and once you tap into it again, you can then start creating solutions, or creating action plans, or creating a to-do list around how you're going to manage it as you go forward. Okay. But then what I want you to do, especially once you've defined, described, and dissected it, and you understand your emotions, I really want you to decide for yourself, how do you want the outcome to happen? How do you want to create or control what happens as a result of this situation that you're in, good, bad, or indifferent? Again, it's taking the power away from the situation and taking ownership of it, while, kind of taking control. So then you can kind of steer the ship and not allow anyone else or anything else to steer it for you. So think about, what do you want for, as an outcome to this? So say let's get dramatic. Say you're in a very struggling financial situation. And this actually was me about 4 or 5 years ago. And you were like kind of on the brink of losing everything financially. And which means it could be your house, it could be your car, it could be your livelihood. And what I want you to do is, I want you to kind of say, okay, so this is the situation I'm in. So that's the point of you stopping, defining, describing, and dissecting, looking at the emotions and the impact it's having on you. But now you want to say, okay, so how do I want to go through this? And what do I want the outcome to be? Because if you're not taking control of that and making that decision for yourself, you're just going to react through it. And you're going to either continue to be stressed and anxious and overwhelmed, angry, excited, fearful, whatever the case might be. And therefore, you're kind of leaving up to the universe doing its thing as to what the outcome's going to be. But once you make a decision about, well, I am going to face this situation, I'm going to face the fear that I have. I'm not going to, I'm going to face it instead of ignore it or avoid it or go around it or pretend it's not there. And therefore, the outcome that I want is, I'm going to be able to solve this financial situation. I'm going to be able to save my home. I'm going to be able to pay my rent or mortgage. I'm going to be able to buy the food that I need. I'm going to be able to maintain the business that I have, even grow the business that I have. And I am going to do X, Y, and Z in order to do that. So you describing the outcome you want from a situation. For Rainey, I would hope it's, I'm going to have a fabulous event and people are going to rave about my work, and they're even going to purchase my work and put money in my pocket. And then I'm going to, as a result, my name is going to be out there, and I'm going to be able to share all of this experience with, my social community. And therefore, I'm going to be able to even expand my brand, so that could be her outcome of what she wants from it. If someone's sick or has someone sick, or, in a bad accident, and the world just looks like it's just falling apart around you. It's right then and there, you want to take control of it, and you want to decide, okay, how do I want this to not end up, but what do I want the outcome to look like? Well, I want the outcome to look like that we all, not only survive, we thrive, we heal, we move on, we live a happy, fulfilled, complete life. And therefore, as much as it's draining or hurting or dragging or causing you to be fearful, the desired outcome that you have will allow you to then say, okay, then in order for me to get there, I need to be X, Y, and Z. And I need to do 1, 2, and 3, which brings me to the next step or tip I would have is, every problem has a solution. Every single problem, challenge, or opportunity has a solution to it. And all you need to do is, again, by stopping, defining, describing, and dissecting, by tapping into your emotions, by deciding what you want as the outcome, you're controlling then what is it that you need to do to work through it. It could take 5 minutes, it could take 5 years, but what do you need to do? So you start getting out of your head, start getting very logical, start getting on a piece of paper with a pen, and you start laying out actions that you can be taking in order to turn this chaos into organization. Now, let's look at just something as simple as, the fact that Rainey, for instance, with this exhibition that she has, with the holidays, with the children, with the husband, with the house, with everything going on, she could be working her way through this as we've been describing. And when it comes to laying out what she needs to do, she could be looking at, that list that she's, been tracking and or she's creating right now. In her case, she's been, already having a list and tracking to it. But then she could be, time blocking all that. She could be laying it out on her calendar. Okay, so we're 4 weeks, 5 weeks from Christmas, and that's very influential with the kids. And therefore, I need to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And so I look over that list of 1 2, through 10 and I say, okay, so some of these things definitely have to start getting worked on now, or I'm going to miss them and not be able to either do them, get them, whatever the case might be. And so just like any other time in any other situation, you just lay out a plan, you look at the priorities based on due dates, based on, milestones. And then you just kind of, if I would suggest, taking all of that, blocking it out on a calendar that then becomes your action plan as to how you're going to work through this chaos in a very organized manner. But there's a couple of other things, especially when it comes to women, that if you really want to get organized through chaos, there's a couple of things that I would want you to do. One is to learn to say no. There's times where we're constantly being bombarded with requests for our help, with our support, with our donation, with and it doesn't matter if it's money. It could be just our time, our mental capacity, our heart. And there's just sometimes we have to say no. We have to say no, because if we don't, then that's when we're getting overwhelmed. And that's when we just feel drained, because we're giving so much of ourselves that we don't have anything left. And so, not only for this holiday season that we happen to be upon, but anytime, you need to get really good at saying no and recognizing that no is not a bad word. It isn't. It's just no. No, I can't, have the kids over with my kids for this, play date, because it's the third one this week and I haven't been able to get any of my work done. No, I can't go to that holiday party on top of every other holiday party that we have scheduled. No, I can't, kind of run an errand or do something that really isn't a priority, whatever the case might be. Just learn to say no, and take that calendar, whether that's literally or virtually is the word coming up, and that's not the right word, but figuratively, and find white space. Intentionally look for white space, which is absence of any obligation, any responsibility, any commitment, and appreciate that white space and make sure it stays. So learn to say no. But the other opposite almost of this is learn to ask for help. Learn to ask for advice. Learn to ask for direction or instruction. Learn to ask for what it is that you need. So then the chaos that you might be in does become very organized, very logical, very doable, even in the worst case scenario, even if it is tragic, even if it is debilitating, even if it is a situation that's, life transforming. If you can say no, and if you can ask for what it is that you need to work through it, then you'll be successful working through it. Okay. And then what I want you to do as you're going through this, as you're stopping, as you're defining it and describing it and dissecting it and looking at the emotions that's coming up for you through it, and then really kind of deciding what you want out of that chaos or out of that situation or event. And then as you are, kind of laying out your action plan and asking and saying no, what I want you to do along that way is continually check in with yourself. Like, don't ignore, that your emotions are still there and they're, maybe all the way up here all the time and they're never calm and peaceful and rested. Or maybe they are, ebbing and flowing, but you're not really paying attention to it. You just constantly feel like it's exhausting. Just, whether it's every morning, every night, whatever the case might be, just check in with yourself as you're working through a situation. Because also what you don't want to do is turn around and all of a sudden days, weeks, months, and sometimes for people years go by and you're just like, it's a blur and you have no idea, what happened in the best of times or the worst of times. And therefore there's nothing to appreciate. In the good times, all that blessing, and in the hard times, all of those lessons and all of those learnings and all of those opportunities to really be proud of yourself for getting through something really difficult. All right. So that's what I would suggest to anyone who is working through any degree of chaos. All right. So moving on. Harrison had put out, and I loved it. Harrison had put out a response to the question of what's the challenge that you're dealing with in your business right now. And he put out that he, all he said was breakthrough to the $4 million mark. I was like, sweet, that's awesome. How many of us want to be there? I'll raise my hand. And that is a wonderful problem to have. And so very practically, my business coaching, business consulting side is going to come out here. When you are trying to break through, even when you're trying to break through from, 75,000 to 100,000 or 100 to 500 or 500 to a million or a million, into 2, let alone, where you might be now into 4 million. Each one of those levels, as you're leveling up, requires a whole different approach. It also requires a whole different degree of leadership from you if you're the lead role in this business growth and development, because some of you may be the CEO / lead entrepreneur, and some of you may be a partner, some of you may be an employee, whatever the case might be. So just recognize that as your business is growing, it's going to require different things of you. It's going to definitely require different, I'm trying to get this light out of my face, require different things of you. Okay. So there we go. So first, what I want you to consider for Harrison or anybody else at whatever level you are right now is I want you to assess what your business is, but I want you to assess what has worked and got you to where you are and what hasn't worked and gotten you where you are. Okay. And it might not be where you want to be, but it's where you are, right? So meet yourself where you are and assess what's worked and what hasn't worked. Now, of course, when you look at the list that says what's worked, you definitely want to continue and enhance and enrich that. When you're looking at things that haven't worked, you don't want to necessarily throw them away. You want to look at them and understand clearly kind of why didn't it work? Why, did you struggle with it? Why were there challenges? Because there's some times where the implementation wasn't right, the timing wasn't right. In the cases, especially of all of us coaches and consultants, our ideal client isn't right. Our messaging isn't right. There's a lot of things that we need to do. We can't throw it away, but at the same time, we need to massage it. We need to revise it. We need to sometimes throw it away and start over again. So when you look at what didn't work, not all of it needs to be thrown away. You need to look at it and say, okay, what do I need to do differently? And that's when I'll tell people that they definitely want to, as they're in a growth mode, they want to definitely test and fail fast. You want to, and you should be looking at your competition, right? Looking at those people that are ahead of you in the type of business that you have. And, kind of assessing what's working for them or what's not working for them. I am not saying that to do that, then you should be copying them. But when you're looking at what's working, what's not working, You also want to kind of fill in the gaps of what have you not tried, to date. And because it could have been the fact that when you were in Harrison's case, say he's at 2 million, he's trying to break into 4. He might have been doing things in the $2 million level that, that kind of fit with his business model, his business structure, the team that he has, so forth and so on. But now he's recognizing that some of the things that he didn't start incorporating or didn't start investing in or didn't start hiring or didn't start implementing was simply because it didn't fit for where he was at that 1 into 2 million mark. But now he's got to reconsider it and look at it again and say, okay, so is it something now that I have to prepare for if I do want to break through? So you just want to really look at all the various types of strategies across the business. Now, I often will share with beginner entrepreneurs. I mean, and I don't mean startups. Startups are kind of you've been in business for 2, 3, 4 years, and yet you're still in that startup phase where you really haven't, hit that hockey stick growth. But I'm talking about, someone within the first year of their business. And I'll tell them from the very beginning. I used to coach a lot in this space in the past, whereas now I coach those that have been in business 3, 5, 7 years. But I would have them, and one of the first things that I have them do is take a org chart. If they have to pull it off the internet, or I give them one, but they have to pull off the internet or draw it on a piece of paper, I don't care. But pull out a org chart and start defining the organization chart of what is going to be needed in their business as a business today and in the future. And org charts are pretty standard. There's the CEO, there might be an administrative assistant. Every function, whether it's corporate or a solopreneur, all have the same functions that need to take place. There's a few exceptions, but there's always sales, marketing, HR, finance, legal, operations. Nowadays, of course, there's social media, but which could fall under marketing. But now there's like digital content, and there's IP. Well, that could fall under legal. But there's an IT. There's an IT technology part of the org chart, and so every business, one person or 100,000 people, every business has all those standard basic functions. Now, there are some that have manufacturing, product development, research and development. So, but coaches and consultants and service providers, you pretty much fall into the initial standard org chart. And so, what I'll have them look at is your job from day one, and this applies to Harrison, but from day one to year 5, from $1 to hundreds of millions of dollars, your job is to work your way out of being in every one of those boxes, because as a solopreneur, that's what you're doing at first. And, your job as the CEO is then to build the team and hire the folks that are going to take you to those next levels. And so as you're maturing from a solopreneur into the next level, you need to consider when you start hiring or contracting and investing in people. In Harrison's case, he probably has a team. Doesn't necessarily mean it's a big team, even though it's $4 million. But at the same time, he needs to really start looking at what are those functions that maybe we've been scraping by and we haven't necessarily needed to invest in before. But if we are going to jump from 2 to 4 or 3 to 4 million, then we really need to maybe hire a whole sales team, hire, a deeper marketing team, hire product development or research and development based on what type of business he has. So there's a lot of different strategies as you're growing. And so, let me paint a real quick simple, for instance. I have, a lot of people in my network, like I said, that are in that beginner stage, even the 1 to 3 years. Let alone what I focus on is those 3 years and above. And, they're seeing all these other established businesses that are doing podcasts and writing books and, you know, I'm drawing a blank right now, but doing all of these other strategies that they're not ready for. It's not their time. As a beginner for the first couple years, even the first 3 years, it should be all about generating revenue, building a leads list, building a client roster, getting processes and procedures in place, and then taking the time, because that's what you're going to be doing, is taking time out of sales generation to write a book or start a podcast or do a video show or whatever the case might be. So there's a time and a place for all the strategies that are out there, and you have to pick and choose. And in the case of Harrison, to break through the next level, it's a matter of just looking over all the strategies that you've done or haven't done. Maybe the business model needs to change. Maybe the team needs to be changed. Maybe the target market needs to be changed. Maybe the product portfolio needs to be enhanced and enriched and brought in. So there's a number of things. And then of course, and this definitely goes out to those young entrepreneurs, even into the 7-10 years, is if you still are expecting that you don't need to invest money into your business, then you're always going to struggle. So I have tons of conversations with people about, so Bernadette, what's the free this or free that, or where can I get it for coaching? Where can I get coaching really inexpensively? Where can I get this app or this tool, or I'm piecing together, these tools in order to do a certain function because, it's free or it costs me like $5 a month. And that is a fine plan for certain stages of your business. But if you want to grow, you need to invest. And yes, it means invest money into things. Okay. So just to be real clear in regards to that. All right. So I hope that helps, Harrison or whomever, when it, depending upon where you are, consider what's working, what hasn't worked, what hasn't been tried. And even those things that have been tried, are there, tweaks that need to be made to them? The one thing I definitely want to bring up before we moved on is, at any stage that anybody's in their business, you could be reaching out to people that are there, both other businesses, but your clients, the prospects that are there that, you're serving at that level, and ask them, what is it that you need? What is it that you've done? What's worked? What hasn't worked? So we're also worried that, oh my gosh, well, I'm not going to go to another, let's use me. I'm not going to go to another coaching organization and ask them what's worked or what hasn't worked. And I'm like, why not? And people will be like, well, because I'm a coach and they're a coach, and why would they want to help me? And, so forth and so on. That is a lacking, desperate mindset. Let me just put that out there right now. People who are where you want to be are not threatened by you where they used to be. And they're not, even if they're a strong leader, they're not even going to be threatened when you're right where they are, even when you exceed them. If they're a secure, confident, true leader, they're going to help you move and advance. Because this is the way I see it, which could be another whole discussion we have another time. But this is the way I see it. If any of us are acting as if we're like the only people, doing what it is that we do, and we need to get every single person that's out there available, to work with us and not somebody else, you are just fooling yourselves and going to drive yourself crazy, because you can't serve all the people that need your type of work. And even if you could, you shouldn't, because not all those people out there that need your type of work are the right people for you. Does that make sense? So there are people, there are tons of people out there that need my type of services. And yet not all of them are right for me. So if I can't serve them, I certainly want other coaches and consultants who can. And therefore, I'm not threatened by the zillions of coaches and consultants that are out there doing the same exact thing that I'm doing, because there's more than enough people that need, to be supported and need to be served. And thank God there's tons of very qualified and some unqualified individuals to serve them. So go and ask them. Don't be afraid or intimidated or insecure or feeling, kind of desperate or controlling, in wanting to keep your business close to you. Go and ask them. And if they're a true leader, they will help you. They will mentor you. They will give you advice and encouragement and thought leadership. And so you want to ask them what they need in order to get to the next level, because they're already there. Now, you can also go and find the type of clients that you're going to want at, for instance, Harrison's point, at the $4 million mark. That might be a whole different type of client. Maybe it's a bigger revenue type of business. Maybe it's a different industry, whatever the case might be. But he could be going to them and he could say, okay, so I'd like to gather some information from you. What's your biggest problem that you're having? What's the biggest challenge you're having? And, what is it that you need from someone in order for you to be able to solve that problem and get out of that situation and get out of that pain and advance to where, you're going. Now, of course, you have to kind of make it clear up front that you're not selling and pitching them something, that you're just wanting to really understand. At the same time, that's what, I used to do on a daily basis, called business discovery. You invite yourself into a potential client and you just learn about their business. And in this case, in order to really kind of assess what you need to do to break through the next level, you're killing two birds with one stone. One is you're learning about what it is that next level of prospect or client is looking for and is in need of. At the same time, you might be already able to serve them, and therefore it could turn into a prospect or a sales call and a sales meeting. But you can treat them separately, or they can come together, as one, so to speak. Okay. I wanted to make sure I got that in there. All right. So the third one was from Stephanie, and she had asked about, again, I asked the question, what are you struggling with right now? And she answered with, she also said breakthrough, but she was wanting to get engagement and responses for interviews. So she's interviewing people. And so she's looking for responses and engagement. Now, I posed a couple of questions back to her to get a better understanding, more in-depth understanding of the situation. But let me just draw some conclusions, if I may, to then provide some things to consider. So let's assume, we could do it two ways. One, we'll look at the fact that all of us, as we all went onto this online world, are looking for engagement and response. Okay. Whether that's just, in the content that we're providing out, and the tips and the advice and the questions and the conversation starters. And we're just wanting that, someone sees it and pays attention to it and finds it valuable to where they actually respond, not just with a like, but actually start a conversation. There's other situations where you have a specific offer you're putting out. You have a specific opportunity you're putting out there. You have a specific project or strategy that you're working on. And therefore, you're putting this opportunity offer out there, and you're hoping someone says, whether it's free or a fee, whether it's for free or for fee, you're hoping that someone will respond. And someone will, say, yay. So for instance, I put out there regularly to you and across platforms that I offer the 15-minute Biz Snap interview. It's an opportunity for you to get some branding and get some marketing so you can get some visibility out there as you share it and put it on your Facebook page or your website or on LinkedIn. And I'm always surprised that I get little chirps of no response, of silence. And so, I can certainly appreciate what Stephanie was saying in regards to that, because you would think, well, wait a minute, this person's giving me a free opportunity to get some free marketing and branding. Why wouldn't I take advantage of that? So let's, kind of consider both of those scenarios. Okay. So the first thing for both of them is just being consistent. And what I mean by that is, you need to be out there consistently, whether it's, kind of making those offers and pitching those opportunities, but hopefully it's kind of a mix of, them getting to know you, you getting to know them, you sharing, kind of quotes or just overall content. And you're doing it consistently. And what I mean by consistency as well is, it's not only Monday, Wednesday, and Fridays, but it's week after week after week after week after week after week. It's not a one-off. It's not an afterthought. It's not a knee-jerk reaction. You're showing up consistently and providing value. Okay. And that takes time. I mean, we all want it to kind of put a post out there that goes viral and the world knows who we are. Well, that's just not realistic for 99.9%. It's just not. So as frustrating as it is, and even as time consuming as it is, just what I would tell Stephanie or anybody else is just stay consistent, stay positive, stay, stay serving and giving, value and quality. Because I have, like I said, the Biz Snap show, but I also have Shedding the Bitch Radio. And I also have times when I do summits, and it's pulling teeth sometimes to get a response. But yet I would tell you that over the last couple of months, and I shared this with a number of you just this past week, is all of a sudden this swell has been happening for me. And I think it's because I just, for now a good year, have just been very consistent, very, out there serving, providing quality, providing value. At least that's what I'm being told. And I am, I'm just consistently showing up so they can, remember, like, know, trust, and do. So they can like, know, and trust that I'm there for them, that it's just not a one-off and I'm just going to disappear tomorrow. And that's what you need to consider too, as frustrating as it can be. That's just what you need to stick with. Okay. The other thing I would suggest to someone is you also need to get narrow and deep. We're trying to be everything to everybody all the time. And it's just, and be everywhere all the time. And it's just not doable, especially consistently, with value, with service, with quality. Plus, we shouldn't be, because the true ideal client that we have isn't everywhere. They're not everywhere. And so the best thing that you could do to really amp up your engagement and your response rate is you can look at where you are, what you are, to whom, and then you can go narrow and deep. Just narrow and deep. Pick one or two versus 3 to 5, and just, go focus there, whether that's a social platform, whether that's a piece of media content type, video, podcast, blog, newsletter, so forth and so on. And, just go narrow and deep. I have fallen in this trap so often because I do have a lot of different content and social platforms out there. And then I have the newsletter blog, right? Newsletter/blog. And I'll be straight up. I am very inconsistent when it comes to my newsletter. And that, you might look at that and go, well, why would she be telling us that when that's what she coaches on? Well, because that's why I have a coach, because I fall into the same traps you do. So I just decided that, okay, I am going to narrow down the type of content that I'm doing, the topics and the themes that I'm doing, and the social media platforms I'm going on. And then that way I can get all of what I want done very consistently of great value, quality, and service. So consistency, and then narrow and deep. Okay. And then what I really wanted to understand as well, specifically from Stephanie, but from anybody that is struggling with engagement and responsiveness, is have you considered the WIFM of everything that you do and what it is that you're doing to either you might be doing an outreach or you might be doing an intake, and I'll explain that in a second. But let's stick with the WIFM. So WIFM is what's in it for them. It used to be what's in it for me. That's what it used to be in my old corporate days. And the me actually wasn't me. The me was that person putting yourself in their shoes, saying what's in it for me as that person. But that kind of started, appearing a little bit off in our PA world, PC world. And so it's, if you really want to look at it, you always want to look at what it is you're about to do or what you've done and say, what's in it for them? So is the messaging that you're putting out there, is it about them? Even though you might tell a story about yourself, but is there a message? Is there a tip? Is there something they can take out of what it is you're putting out there? And therefore, you're always thinking what's in it for them. So for instance, if in this case, if she is reaching out or she's doing something, we'll get to that in a minute. But if she is looking for people who she can interview, just like myself, the request of and the thought of, well, this is good for them is a great thought. It's a great marketing piece for them. It's a great thought. But if you're not conveying that to them and you're not helping them to see that, then it's falling on deaf ears and you're not going to get the response. So, all the messaging has to be about what's in it for them. Why should they take even 15 minutes to do an interview? How are they going to benefit from that? How are they going to gain visibility from that? How are they going to gain potential clients from that? How are they going to gain speaking opportunities from that? How are they going to gain whatever it is that you think they want or need or desire out of doing whatever it is that you're asking them to do? Now, that could be for your offer as well and your products and services. What's in it for them to purchase or engage, or even for a complimentary coaching call? What's in it for them to engage with you? And so if you're not getting engagement and response, regardless of what it is you're doing, then really consider if you're considering what's in it for them. Now, the other thing tactically, I would want to learn more about is she or anybody else, is it an outreach or is it an intake? And what I mean by that is the outreach could be, for instance, for us, Deborah, who's on my team, who supports the radio program, she goes and she looks for potential guests that fit into the subject matters that we've outlined for a month or the whole year, actually. And she goes out and reaches out to the people to say, hey, this is who we are. This is what our show's about. That your subject matter would be great for it. Would you be, open for an interview? And therefore, we're doing the work. We're doing the work to kind of reach out to them and get them to, with the WIFM included, so we can get them to say yes. Intake is when, which we will do as well, and you'll see that with especially the Biz Snap, is I'll post kind of a pitch to offer a 15-minute interview, complimentary, yada, 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 with the WIFM, blah, 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 expecting them to then respond and raise their hand and say, yes, I'm interested. See the difference? And so the intake is a bit harder. Excuse me. The intake is a little bit harder, only because so many people see them and it's not really directed to them. It's more of a general post going to a lot of people, and therefore they don't necessarily connect personally to it. Whereas when we outreach to a specific person, we say, hey, Joanne, we love your show, blah, 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 or we love your business, blah, 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 blah. We'd love to have you on our show. This is what it's all about. This is what's in it for you. This is how we think that you can gain, benefit from. We'd love to have you. If you're interested, please let me know and we'll send you the information to schedule, your interview. And as a result of that personal outreach, we get a lot of great responses. So I would also, and this pertains to anything that you're doing, to anybody, not just Stephanie or anybody else. If you are, putting promotions out there, offers out there, opportunities out there, consider when you should outreach and when you want an intake, because they will have a different degree of response. And you want to track that response to see what is most effective. Because of course, if you can find something most effective, like right now, we really don't do any, for the radio show, we don't do any intake. We do all outreach just because of the fact that we can get a much higher response rate than if we're, kind of putting out the opportunity and expecting them to respond. So you want to look at that as well. The other thing that I would tell all of you to get response, engagement, collaboration is get creative as far as the type of medium you're using. So of course, on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, people are posting GIFs and images and videos and, in the Facebook post, instead of putting an image in, they're using Facebook's, coloring tool, so forth and so on. But there's also voice. There's also where, on a DM, you can use your voice and send somebody a personal message. LinkedIn, even right now, has where you can, put in your profile image. You could put a 30-second video up there of yourself. You can also text instead of, kind of relying on all the traditional type of content distributions. So also get creative as far as wanting that response and that engagement by, using different things. I actually thoroughly am enjoying, from one particular person, the fact that they're voice messaging me via Facebook Messenger. But there's also Loom. And there's also, various tools that you can use to actually, kind of communicate versus just putting posts out there. That could be very unique and different. I mean, who's not obsessed with TikTok or Facebook Reels, and they've only been around for a short period of time, Facebook Reels at least. If it's not TikTok itself, it's a knockoff. And, and they just get tons of attention and response and engagement. So just get creative. Don't, stick with the norm if things aren't working. All right. So that would be it for the questions that we have received, but keep in mind traditionally on Thursdays at 1:00, our Powerhouse Mavericks, we, have, a particular subject that we're talking about, and we get into that for about 30 minutes. I apologize for the long, session today due to the fact that we had some technical issues. But keep in mind that at any point in time you have a question, you can always go right into the Powerhouse Mavericks group and post a question, post a post. Feel free. It's your group. And at the same time, you can always DM me directly, Bernadette Boas, and I would love to help you out in that regard. I also wanted to, because we are going into a crazy period with the holidays and whatnot. I also wanted to share, and because we had a reboot, I'm going to see if I can get this up quickly, but we also are putting out there as an opportunity for you a way to kind of get out of the overwhelm, get out of the stress, get out of the anxiety, get out of the chaos, get organized, even get to the point where you are set up not only for a fabulous December, but a wonderful 2022. And so you'll start seeing from us information regarding our cash generating strategy sessions that I'm doing. And I've scheduled this week all the way through December. And basically what it looks like is it's an hour, if not more, totally dedicated to drilling into you and your business, where it is right now, where you want to take it, what you need to do in order to get there, and what are the challenges that you're having. And then we're talking through, and I'm documenting recommendations, tips, strategies. I'm giving you a list of hacks, depending upon what the challenges and the issues and the opportunities are. And then I'm taking all of that and putting it into a 6-month action plan for you. So then you know exactly what you need to be doing and when you need to be doing it. So you can get organized around everything it is that you're trying to do and any chaos that might come up. But more so, you have a clear plan to where you are focused and confident and determined and clear in regards to what it is you need to be doing all the time. And that in itself is just going to minimize any stress or anxiety or overwhelm. So we are booking these, like I said, right now through, even though it's listed there, we are booking them through December, and we'll go into January with them, but I'm only doing them a couple of days a week. So you're going to definitely want to lock in as soon as possible and secure your spot. And trust me when I say, you could even be, blocking it and getting it done over the next couple of weeks and actually go through the holidays without any of the typical stress and overwhelm of, needing to do everything and getting everything ready for when January 1 kicks in. You could walk away and be like, I'm going on vacation. And it'll be a well-earned vacation. All right. So go to coachwithbernadette.com/strategy session and let me help you get out of the chaos, get organized, get out of being overwhelmed, and really help you to create riches in your work and life. All right. I'm going to let you go. Have a great day. And I will see you soon. Bye.